morning, everyone. My name is Francesca, and I'm a 17-year-old student who's here as a volunteer for the Francesca Lava Foundation. I think that food is our one and only fuel, and we can't allow ourselves to take that for granted. Let's picture this. You're driving in your car, and you've just filled the tank, but suddenly your car stops, and you can't do anything about it. So you check the tank, and you find out it has been filled with oil instead of gasoline. Whenever you eat, you could be facing the same situation, and you wouldn't even know it. As a matter of fact, you could think you know what you're eating, but most of the time you don't. Perhaps you didn't even check what kind of fuel you're using, or maybe they just tricked you. However, being aware of what you eat, and especially knowing where the food comes from, means caring not only about you and those around you, but also about the whole environment. Indeed, everyone cares about themselves and the loved ones. But if you don't care about the environment, you have to ask yourself, as Howard Schultz said, what kind of world do you want to live in? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sven Edgren from DNVGL. We are a global certification company. We've been around for 150 years, and our job is to ensure companies' safe operations, meaning that the quality of their products, the standards of the environment and social standards can be respected, and also that the products coming out are responsible. I'd like to take you on a little journey, share some thoughts and viewpoints around the use of blockchain. So, what intelligent technologies can we use to build trust? Also, how can we bring consumers on this journey? What are the new experiences that they can have and enjoy? And finally, I'll take a little turn towards serving the circular economy. So, how also by the way we consume can we actually contribute to a greener world? Now, first of all, why does this all matter? It's the food, for instance, we eat, or the beverages we drink. So you see here there can be health reasons, nutrition, or even it's about economic fraud, right? I mean, it's not a good thing when what you think is inside a bottle or inside a container is not what it says it is. And finally, I mean, we don't need to mention there have also been scandals regarding real safety and rather detrimental developments. So all of this, I think, there is a case for how we can build more trust into the whole food supply chain. What is driving us? We as consumers are, I think, more curious these days, and we are craving for information. So can I actually trust the product? What is inside, and who has contributed? So what people are looking for, in a way, is the brand promise to be real, and consumers are asking themselves, is this now really where it's coming from? Or is the social responsibility behind this product, and the brand, of course, is it what it states to be? And they expect kind of a new type of communication. On the other hand, brands and companies, they are already investing a whole lot in safeguarding the integrity of the supply chain. So it's not as if they're not doing nothing. It's a lot of effort, supply qualification, raising the bar. But of course, this can be done in new ways now with technology. And interesting is the last point with how do you find new engaging touch points? How do you kind of reach your consumer, even though maybe you don't have the direct access until now? So technology has to be mentioned. I will not dwell upon blockchain, but many of you have probably heard it is a network, a decentralized network, where entities, people, companies can exchange information, they can carry out transactions, they can even exchange values. DNVGL and VChain, or DNVGL is using the VChain public blockchain to achieve these 4 pillars that you see here. So obviously you have to be able to use it. It has to be affordable, and certainly you want the whole thing to be trusted and scalable. And I think the scalability issue that has been talked a lot about, in a way, has been solved. It's working. These companies you see here, they are wine producers, car manufacturers, appliances for a smart home. They are already using the blockchain in their operations. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, DMVGL transferred 140,000 certificates, meaning 140 digital objects, assets, within the course of a couple of days. So the scalability problem has been solved and will continue always to be ready. Now, blockchain is fine, but you could state, how on earth do you actually safeguard that what is put into the blockchain is also what it claims to be? And I think this is where we feel that there is, let's say, an additional layer of trust necessary, such that a third party like DMVGL is acting upon. And we think that whether it's more machine-driven or more people-driven, speaking of doing a field audit or a factory audit, there is a whole lot of, let's say, extra confidence coming from this. And that if we use the blockchain cleverly and have the checks and balances in place, then you are starting to create a platform for trustworthy data and facts that you can then communicate to your target audience, your consumer, with a whole new way of confidence. Let's take a look at what this looks like.
There is a shift of trust from brands to products. Consumers want to know what is inside every item, which is why Italian winemakers are turning to My Story. Seconds after scanning a QR code, the characteristics of the bottle are revealed. Discover the wine's story from bottle to vineyard with detailed information such as where it was bottled to how the grapes were picked and farmed. Explore the district of the vineyard, including its location, altitude, size, and soil type. The winery's proud history is also shared. Go to Facts and Suggestions to find essential information, including certifications, sustainable footprint, and how it is best consumed. The NVGL auditors still visit the vineyards to verify processes and data. Sensors and digital tools make data collection more efficient and reliable. It builds confidence by communicating with consumers through a single product. Everything is timestamped and stored in the blockchain and cannot be altered. So, no matter where, consumers can trust everything shared about the wine, its quality, authenticity, and sustainability.
Right. So you get the picture. Facts and information at the touch of your hand. Very easily accessible, very trustworthy. Let's take a kind of an added dimension to this. So what you saw now in the wine example, we are also already working with other brands in other areas of food and beverage and apparel on it. But you could add a dimension of circular economy. What do we mean by that? In society, when we use services like mobility, or we are buying goods, we have residue, unwanted residue, which can be characterized as an externality. It's not wanted. It means carbon emissions from driving, not wanted. Same with waste coming from packaging. And some of my colleagues yesterday talked about an example whereby people driving electric cars, sourced from renewable energy, they actually generate their carbon credits for a given mileage. And this carbon credit, it's in a way a source of value that is wanted, and they can use that as a voucher with other participating retailers in the same system. So this is already up and running. We also, in very advanced talks with companies and brands around waste. Exactly the same concept. So imagine you have your capsules or your containers, you return them, and for the good deed of returning, you as a consumer, when you have 20 or 100 items, you return it, and you actually get rewarded. And this is another aspect of the blockchain that is not just about data handling, it's actually starting to use rewards and incentivization to achieve this. So I think you can not only tell the story about your product, but you could even expand that and tell, what is my product doing to the environment? Am I even having a closed loop? Am I able to get the environmental footprint as low as possible? So I think here we have a whole new set of potential that we are very sure will come pretty soon. Finally, in doing all of this, I'd like to highlight that it's, in a way, a joint effort. It's not just about one brand, one company. We are actively building an ecosystem partnership within many fields. So you see here from academia to associations, IT solution providers, tagging. So tagging is the means of attaching an identity with a marker to a product. And all of this needs to come together, and we are not talking about selling bits of technology. We are providing whole solution for given customer needs so that they can do their business, expand their success. And all of this, of course, the underlying technology, at least one of the core ones, is the blockchain solution. So with this, I'd like to just end my note on saying, I think together, and also the people coming after me, the speakers, all companies have a role to play in this ecosystem, and we would very much at least like to work with a lot of them. So thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to tell you the story of the COP chain. Let me start talking about COP. COP is one of the biggest Italian retailers, and the COP system is composed by several major cooperatives, consumer cooperatives, and other medium and small cooperatives. COP Italia is the national consortium that groups all of them. One of the most important responsibility of COP Italia is to develop and maintain the COP's private label products. And COP Italia does this according to the COP general mission. The COP mission is to defend people's interest, health and safety, to safeguard the environment, to promote an aware consumption, and to contribute to the development of cooperation. And to achieve this goal, COP adopts a 360 degrees action strategy to take full control of every COP private label product supply chain. And to do this, COP Italia established strong partnership with every supplier. If we want to sum up this approach, this strategy, we can focus on these three important pillars: traceability, transparency, and total supply chain control. So COP is continuously looking for new technologies, new processes, and new methods to improve these three pillars. So we decided to explore the opportunities that blockchain technologies and IoT technologies could give us to improve transparency towards the consumers. So we chose to find out if the blockchain could help us to improve transparency towards the consumer, and we want to test IoT technology to understand if they could help us to reduce cost of traceability. In particular, thinking about the processes of data gathering from the field. So COP Italia decided to develop a prototype. And for the prototype, COP Italia chose the eggs supply chain, in particular the bio-eggs supply chain. Why the bio-eggs? We chose the bio-eggs because COP already controls every single step of this supply chain, from hatcheries to consumers. And the eggs are relatively simple to trace because obviously product is not transformed in any way. It's only packed. So the supply chain is not so complicated to trace. And bio-eggs are also a best-selling product for us. So in that way, we can really and significantly test the impact that the prototype could have on the market and on the consumers. So the prototype goal is to check sustainability of a blockchain-based traceability solution. So we decided to launch a call for ideas with Seeds&Chips and IBM. And in the latest Seeds&Chips edition, we launched this call for ideas, and we call it Great Expectations. And I have to say that we received several applications, if I remember well, 28 applications, some of them about blockchain and the other on IoT technologies. And at the end of 2018, we decided to work on the prototype and to choose as partner Connecting Food. Connecting Food is a startup based in Paris that owns a food traceability solution based on blockchain, in particular based on a permissioned blockchain known as Hyperledger Fabric. And we thought that with a food traceability solution of Connecting Food, we can do real-time food traceability, and we can improve transparency towards the consumer. Obviously, IBM participated in the projects too, and IBM gave us the opportunity to use its Hyperledger Fabric environment to develop our prototype. And finally, we choose an important partner for COP. We choose Eurovo. We choose Eurovo because Eurovo is one of the main leaders in the European market in eggs production. Eurovo works and is partner of COP for over 16 years. And with Eurovo, we share values and mission because Eurovo believes in quality and transparency. And Eurovo decided to participate to the project because he has agreed that improve the control of the supply chain can guarantee more transparency to the consumers. So we started to develop in January, and six days ago, on the 2nd of May, we released the COP chain. With the COP chain, we want that the consumer can have the supply chain in their hand using its smartphone. And we put a QR code on the pack, on the hex pack, and the consumer journey, the consumer experience is really simple, because consumer can scan the QR code on the hex pack, can insert the batch code that he can find on the pack, and then can read the hens breeders and the packing center where the eggs come from. And the consumer can also read informations and watch videos to understand in details how the Eurovo and COP supply chain is made. So, if you want to try, this is the QR code that we have on the pack. So, if you want, you can try it. On the slide, you have also batch code, an example batch code. This is the batch code of the first day of production traced with blockchain. And now, we don't know exactly. Now we have to learn from this prototype. We have to check the impact that this prototype will have on the market. And then COP will decide its strategy, its future strategy about traceability, about transparency, and about blockchain. I'm finished. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for Seeds&Chips for inviting me here to speak today, and thank you to the City of Milan for its good food and hospitality. My name is Phil Harris. I'm from Ripe.io, and I'd like to talk a little bit about how we see the world of food on a go-forward basis. Just a quick little note about us. We've been doing this for about 2.5 years. We are a collection of entrepreneurs, blockchain engineers, farmers, sustainability engineers, and food and flavor scientists. And we are backed by Maersk, the big shipping company, and RelishWorks, which is an innovative food accelerator and incubator out of Chicago. I think I want to take 1 second to just give you a picture that blockchain is alive and well across a whole range of industries. And here are extracts from a report from McKinsey and a report from Deloitte that show food and ag and supply chain as being very good industries that will benefit from the use of blockchain. But there are many other industries alive and well that are taking this technology very seriously, and they should be. This slide really is to communicate that you're going to hear a lot about traceability and transparency, and I think there's value there. But it's not the end. It is the beginning of what blockchain can do in the backdrop of food and agriculture. And here are just a couple of extracts of the work that we're doing at our company that involve a whole range of activities that really get into the science of the food, the microclimate, how the soil affects the food, supply chain certification, cold chain, and ultimately, what does the consumer think about that and what do they want to know about their food? You can also use blockchain to automate a lot of the insurance and payment attributes that flow through the ledger too. But, you'd have to catch me after the speech and I'll share a little bit more about it. So our goal at Ripe.io is really to empower people to make confident choices about the food that they eat, grew, and sell. And we see a future state of food that becomes more digital, more personalized. And so what I want to kind of show you here is that music, television, and books have gone digital. The work of companies like Spotify, Netflix, and Amazon, in that you like this book, you'll like that book. You like this TV show, you like that TV show. So if you think about now, if you can capture all of the attributes about food and digitize it, now I can talk about food in a different way. I can talk about its quality. I can talk about its flavor. I can talk about its sustainability. So you like that hot pepper, you might like this hot pepper. You like this food because I know your DNA profile and you shouldn't eat that food. You shouldn't have tomatoes because of the lycopene content. That's bad for your muscles, etc., right? I mean, just imagine. So there are companies out there that sell food, really good food, but they act like a technology and software company. And so as the supply chains got a lot longer, we've kind of lost that connection with our food. My grandparents used to go to the local butcher, know the butcher by name, ask him questions about the beef, and he knew everything about it that morning if it came in. Is it selling? Where did it come from? Where did it grow? And they were very informed and had a relationship with the guy that was selling the food and knew a lot more about the food. As the supply chain got a lot longer and very fragmented, we lost that connection. We believe as food becomes more digital in nature, we can have that connection. So our work transcends a whole variety of supply chain participants, from large restaurants, CPGs, governments, associations, and so on. And they're all striving to create more efficiency, to know more about what's going on in their supply chain. And then there's kind of two outcomes. One, as the owner of the supply chain, whether it's the growing or the buying or the distribution angle, you can do a lot more around efficiency and automation. And through that, you can know a lot more about the journey of the food. You can have a lot more confidence that it is really what it is. And then it's up to really the people within the individual roles of the supply chain to then share that to the consumer, if they so wish. All supply chains come in many shapes and sizes. So whether they're vertically integrated, whether they go from Chile to China, 12,180 miles, and this is really where the work begins, that we take a look at a supply chain, and then we try to digitize it. And so what this slide is really showing is the hops from a farm to a processor to distribution to the wholesaler. And as you can see in the individual discrete roles, they're not communicating. They don't share information. And so here is really the work for us really begins, in that we digitize the elements of the flow and the activity and the data. And that's through IoT devices, ERP systems, a whole range of integration. And these are the discrete data objects that we collect. This is kind of our link to the physical world called a food bundle. And a food bundle is the representation of everything from the field, distribution, and all the way through the supply chain. So here's a random thing about, tell me about the soil, tell me about the water, tell me about the amount of sun, and so on and so forth. This data is collected. Actually, if you can actually put a QR code, so if you look to take a picture, don't actually take the picture, but hover your camera over that QR code. It will take you to a web page. And here's just an extract of some of the work that we've done, where one of our clients wanted to showcase elements of milk through the supply chain in terms of when was it picked up and what happened to it along the way. Tell me about the sustainability of that particular dairy farmer. These dashboards are built to basically visualize the data. And there's a dirty little secret in the blockchain world that blockchains are very hungry for data. And it takes an incredible amount of work to digitize the supply chain, but when you do, you need to look at it. You need to kind of interact with it. These kind of dashboards give you those insights and allow you to kind of understand what's going on. And when you understand what's going on, either you're able to produce better quality, better tasting, more ripe food as in examples, and the benefits within the supply chain will also lead to hopefully minimizing things like spoilage and waste, which I think are very good attributes. So at this conference and any other conference that I've spoken at or attended over the last few months, you hear about waste and you hear about fraud. And these are very abstract themes. And I don't think people really understand it. And so to put it into context, Toyota make a lot of cars, right? Do you think Toyota would tolerate 3 cars out of 10 not ending up in the hands of the consumer? So 3 cars that come off the factory don't go into the garage of the consumer. Well, you know the answer to that. So why does the food and ag industry tolerate 30 to 40% waste? That I just don't understand. It's because of the lack of digital activity in the supply chain. There's a very analog, a lot of paper. A lot of paper creates a lot of inefficiency. Inefficiency generates waste and spoilage. Here's another one for you, fraud. If I told you that the cell phone you had in your pocket had fake parts in it, you'd get really irritated, right? Yes, you would. If I told you the dollars or the euro in your wallet were counterfeit, would you get irritated? Yes, you would. If that Burberry sweater that you bought said it was cashmere and it wasn't, it was fake, would you get irritated? Yes, you would. So why don't you get irritated when the honey that you're buying is not all honey? Why when you buy palm oil or olive oil that's been watered down, why don't you get irritated? And why those cage-free eggs that you were buying that aren't really cage-free, there's a fraudulent claim by the grower? Why don't you get irritated? Help me understand that, right? You're being given information which is not true. And so by collecting data, validating these data sets across the supply chain, we hope to give a lot more trust back into a very broken and fragmented industry, and to hopefully reconnect people with their food in a more meaningful way. Thank you for your attention. I'll be over there taking questions after. Thank you.
Good morning. I am professor of University of Bologna and the founder of the Innovation Lab on blockchain and new technologies. This lab is a joint lab between KPMG and the University of Bologna. And the mission is twofold. First, researching on cutting-edge technologies, and second, the technological transfer of our researchers. Good. One of the running projects of the laboratory is about food and blockchain. Okay, it involves Seafood. Seafood is a leader company in collective catering since 40 years. It delivers something like 100 million of meals per year. So the project we are developing with the Seafood is reshaping. It's reshaping food supply chain management using blockchain. I think I have not to convince anybody in this hall on the usage of blockchain for delivering trust, for guaranteeing food traceability and the transparencies of the production cycle of a meal. So, actually, in this project, we are beyond mere food traceability. So, it's what we are doing in this project are securing the whole supply chain management from starting from the raw producers to the end client. Well, this seems a very bold catchphrase. Let me say what we are doing exactly in this project. So it's the first problem we are analyzing is 0-kilometer guarantee. So usually, by 0-kilometer feature, people means a short distance between the supply chain and the customers. So it's and this definition is quite vague, no? Because of the ambiguity of the notion of shortness. So what you see in public tenders, for instance, is that there are constraints between the kitchen and the delivery point. Let's say less than 40 kilometers. Okay. Now, our point is, okay, what about if it is possible to constrain also the distance between other actors of the supply chain and the delivery point? I mean, constraint distances between buildings is easy, okay? But what about the others? Okay, what about if in the next future, public tenders will add these constraints? Are companies ready to provide such kind of guarantees? So, good. So it's, we answer to this question by geolocalizing every single stakeholders in the supply chain. Our idea is to use sensors in order to record the GPS coordinates of every sensible information which is added in the blockchain. Okay? So what this means, algorithmically, so this means that, for instance, if a customer acquire a meal at a delivery point, since the transaction is managed by a smart contract, the smart contract on the fly computes the maximal distance between every actor of the supply chain and the customer, and gives a compensation in case of problems, in case the delivery is not short. Okay, This technique seems also valuable because recently several governments have started the procedure for the legal recognition of blockchain registries and smart contracts. So hopefully, our technique in the next future will have also a legal value. Okay? Of course, geolocalization has a primary value for client as well, because they can determine in a very precise way where the raw materials of the food he is eating have been produced. Okay, so since the clients, people expect that clients can pay more for this kind of feature, I mean, this is interesting for the companies. Okay, so this is our first problem we are addressing. The second problem is even more interesting because it is about contamination. Okay, so contamination is very critical because it can cause death. Let me say just a couple of numbers. Okay, in the last 5 years in Texas, I'm not talking of some underdeveloped country in the world, there have been 26 cases of botulinum contamination, infant botulinum contamination, which were caused by food. Last year, in the French company Lactalis, has recalled 12 million boxes of powdered baby milk from 80 countries because of salmonella contamination. And they took several months to discover that the infection was in a deposit. Okay? So what we can do, I mean, is it possible to prove or disprove contamination algorithmically in an automatic way by using blockchain? So we have a solution. Our solution uses vertical traceability, and let me explain this solution with an example. So let's take seafood. Okay, in seafood you have a standard chain for preparing meal, which has kitchen, cooks, and instruments. Okay, now tracing food in this case is just recording the activity of every actor in the blockchain. And then the smart contract is able to recover who participated to that meal, to that particular meal. Right? Very nice. Now, the point is that in these companies, there are also other chains, like a celiac chain, with kitchen, cooks, and instrument as well. But in order to optimize the usage of resources, the point is that the cooks and the instrument are shared between the chain. Now, how can you prove gluten, that there is no gluten contamination in this complex scenario? Okay, so we prove our technique is the following. Okay, we let every significant actors in the blockchain, in the supply chain, every significant actor to be a first-class entity. By first-class entity, we mean that it is active. Even instruments are active. So it records all the activity it performs in the blockchain. For example, a cook records the meal he prepares in a working day in the blockchain and his hygienic activity as well. Okay? Therefore, if there is, for instance, a cook which prepares a standard meal and afterward he prepares a celiac meal, no, a warning is raised immediately, okay, and an ad hoc procedure can be triggered. Similarly, if there is a disease at the end of the chain, so a smart contract can be invoked, and this smart contract can spot all the sharing problems involving that meal. Okay, just to conclude with an effective sentence. Vertical traceability allows us to trace the cross-causality dependencies, and it is the technique that it is crucial for demonstrating contamination or disprove contamination. Okay, that's the end of the talk. The time is up. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello, everyone. It's a privilege to be here amongst so many beautiful projects and inspired people. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pongy, a small startup in the south of France that works in a special field, which is connecting people with food. We didn't take it from a technological point of view, so I'm going to talk about the human incentive behind the food chain and the way we can get better information. I have 36 years of experience as a customer, so that's the best thing I can talk about. So the best way, I think, to start with introducing our company, we made a little film, a short movie of 1 minute. It's in French, but it's subtitled, so everybody can get it. Here it is.
Salut, comment tu t'appelles?
Moi, je suis une tomate.
Oui, j'ai vu. D'où tu viens? Tu fais quoi dans la vie?
Moi, je suis une tomate.
Oh, regarde, un client.
Je suis une tomate.
Salut Philippe, j'ai grandi au soleil à la ferme du Moulin, un producteur local passionné qui pratique l'agriculture raisonnée. Ensuite, j'ai fait 34 km pour arriver chez ton primeur qui m'a choisi pour ma variété pleine de saveurs. J'ai été adoptée 26 fois cette semaine dans ton quartier et ton amie Marion m'a donné une super note. Elle te conseille de me manger en salade avec un vinaigre balsamique que tu trouveras chez l'épicier fin juste à côté. Au fait, je suis un fruit, pas un légume. Ah, et je suis une tomate.
So, now we can talk about smart product data. Are we there yet? Well, we need something to connect all the people from the supply chain and the food systems to the final customer. We need to speak the same language. And for that, we need to allow all the food chain people to speak this language too and to be able to build it. So I'll make a few statements on food data to make sure that we're all up to date with what really comes in handy with food data. First thing, it is the fuel to all the applications we're using today, marketplaces, B2B, B2C, analytics, the scanner application you're using to get better information on your products. They all have one common point. They need one set of data to work. So the main functions are matching offer and demand. If you have smart food data, it works like for any search engine. You can match characteristics of a product with a specific demand of one individual. Second, comparing and choosing. Then you have the information, you can compare and decide what fits your values best. And it's driving trust and loyalty, of course. But there's a better thing behind. If you connect the whole food systems through smart product data, you build intelligence. You're allowed to trace any piece of information, and not just traceability, but full food health, values, savoir-faire, commitments, all the sustainable characteristics of the products, and everything about people behind. So, in order to give consumers the power to choose, there's a human side behind that technology cannot do. It's finding a way for professionals of the food systems to actually collaborate and create value for each other. So, the problem is that food data is a mess. It is a huge mess. You have nutrition here, you have contents here, you have objective data on labels, certifications, education. It's a mess. In order to answer all the questions of the customer, you need to do one thing. You need to assemble all of these data. So we went to meet all the professionals on the food market with one question, but we started with customers. What question do you have when you buy one product? What gets you to decide to choose this one instead of this one? And we had thousands of different combinations of answers, but we could sum it up. Then we went to see professionals to know who could bring this information. We met a lot of them, from big retailers to catering to label, certification, organisms of control, and also research. But the one who gets it all is this guy, because if he doesn't give you the basic data on the product, nobody gets it along the chain. So you have to incentive him so that to make it easy to provide the data and rewarding. We summed it up, because we had so many answers, we needed to organize all this. And we realized that we were building a universal language to get professionals to fill the data that will answer our questions as customers. And because this data, when we met the producer again and we said, hey, can you fill this form, please? He said, yeah, okay, no way. These are bricks that all the food chain can take in control in different ways. Labels and certifications, well, you go meet labels and certifications. You allow them to product content and certify all the data. You need content, you go to see the brands. You need to share this data, you go see the retailers who can collect it. And this way, we build an ecosystem that provides data to any of the people of the food systems. We called it Panji, because it's like the supercontinent, basically. And it's the first collaborative data network that unifies food system by sharing and distributing value all along the chain. First, it saves money and time. Then it gets you to have a better reliability on all the data you're going to ask. And it will increase sales and trust all along the chain. But it is a universal language that allows any applications to use it their own way, to optimize waste, to get better information to customers, and to match offer and demand on any marketplace. So basically, you don't always have to open a data sheet, to see what the information inside is. The first thing is that with structured data, you can match offer to demand straight. So you have three functions. We made it very easy because it's very important to have a good user experience, especially for producers. They won't fill up forms. They will fill, questions, check, and we will deduce the data behind. We will produce objective data. So to fill up all the components, the bricks that you saw before, you just need a few clicks, and you don't have to seize data. It takes 1 minute to fill up a form for your tomato. That's what we call the digital passport of products, the whole information around each product. This is the metadata. This is the invisible part that allows your product to interact with the whole market. And the more data you produce, the more you get intelligence and interaction between customers and all the food system actors. Then you share it, but you must control it, because Jean-Claude, the producer, he will not give the same data to anyone, He wants to control who sees it and who uses it. And then all the applications on the market need a different part of the data. You need to optimize waste, while you need packaging and conditioning information. If you need to provide data to customers to allow them to be smarter, to tell them how many products are made less than 100 kilometers away, what are the labels that are your favorites, and to optimize your waste, well, you need this data to improve customer services. And finally, you get your reward. The more data you produce, the better your intelligence becomes. for any actor of the food chain. So this is, we are a small team. We are not a big startup today. We're only 7. We are half food experts and half specialized in digitalization, which means we know how to make very complex stuff very simple and usable for everyone. Finally, these are a few rules I'll pass by very quickly. First thing, equity to inform is so important. If the one who pays more has a better information, that's not fair, because you have to value the real efforts that are done along the way. So creating and sharing must be free. Then shared value creation, yeah, everybody needs incentive to collaborate with its chain. Inside-out interoperability, this one is a bit hard to say. And universal comprehensive language is the very basis, because we have very simple questions to ask when we choose our products, and that's the way we can track the market into a very sustainable way. So finally, I tried to say it right, molte grazie per la vostra attenzione. I just wanted to say was all these bricks that we put in products, we are just a small part of a bigger brick that is this responsible consumption and production we're aiming to. Thank you very much.
Under 30.
Hello, everybody. Really good to see you all. At the beginning of my talk, I would like to take you on a small journey to find out what the word jumbo has to do with tuna. So a couple of months ago, I was in Tokyo and had the pleasure to visit the old fish market just before it closed down and moved to a new location. And I experienced how one of these big tuna fish was cut up right in front of me, and I felt really excited to be part of this particular piece of the journey of that tuna fish that I might have to, or that I was going to have for lunch as sushi. But when I started talking to the fishermen, they actually told me that this kind of tuna is called a jumbo because they're being flown in all the way from Boston because it was not the right season for tuna fish in Tokyo when I was there. So I felt really surprised and a little bit disappointed, but actually, in a second moment, I felt informed. And this was a feeling that I wanted to have with more products in my everyday life, because it's actually exciting to know where your products are coming from. And this is why today I want to talk to you about transparency in the food system for us as a modern consumer. How do we communicate traceability and transparency to a young consumer group like us millennials? And why I think it's actually a great marketing opportunity for sustainable brands and products, and finally make consumers consume more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff. And ultimately, of course, I will briefly talk about how we at SeeHow, our small startup, are using blockchain to kind of facilitate this communication. My name is Chris, and I'm very happy to be here. So who is driving transparency in the global food system? And I'm proud to say it's really my generation, the millennials. But why are we doing that? Because we are actually about to become next year the biggest consumer group on global markets. We are 1.8 billion strong around the globe, and we have $14 trillion in annual income that we can spend on consumption. But above all, we're really a generation of brand investigators. We are investigating how brands produce their products, where products are coming from. We write online reviews, and we refer to online reviews. And I'm really sorry, but my really nice PowerPoint presentation looks a bit odd. So by now, actually 74% of consumers around the world would switch brands and products for more transparency. So they would literally go and eat a different chocolate bar if they know from one chocolate bar where it's coming from. And this is a big challenge for brands and producers around the world. So how do we communicate traceability and transparency to consumers? Well, there's a concept called micro moments, which is coined by Google. And of course, it's no coincidence that Google and Facebook are such successful companies because they simply know how to communicate to us the right piece of information at the right time, at the right medium. So what is a micro moment? A micro moment is a critical touch point in today's consumer journey. It is a micro moment when you feel hungry and start to look up where is the next restaurant? What product am I going to eat for lunch? And often or not, Google and Facebook will give you suggestions and ads what to eat next. So it is exactly these moments that we have to catch and target with transparency and traceability to really influence the consumer journey and the decision journey really from the beginning. And that's why we founded SeeHow. SeeHow is really a window into global supply chains. SeeHow is a tool for brands to visually communicate about their origin of their products to consumers in an authentic, transparent, and visual way. So these are all nice words, but how does it work in reality? So at the moment, one of the largest coffee brands around the world is testing our software solution, which is actually consists of an app that they can give to their staff and employees along the supply chain. With our app, the employees can take pictures and videos of their daily life. When they're outsourcing for new coffee, for checking quality of the beans, they can simply take a picture, add a description of what they're seeing. On top of that, we encrypt these kind of images together with the location, the GPS coordinates of where the image was taken, and the time on the public Ethereum network as a layer of authenticity and verifiability. So there you see, it's really, blockchain for us is a medium of security that we use as a layer within our solution. As the next step, these insights coming from the field will reach the headquarters of the coffee company, the marketing department, which can kind of use these insights in real time on their existing channels. On Instagram, on Facebook, in online ads, they can give a live window to consumers to see how their products are actually made. So the question is really, do we need another app or channel to communicate to consumers? Or do we have to kind of leverage the channels that are out there to reach actually the millions that are already on Instagram and Facebook? And together with the images, we also make available more information. You can check out the locations of where the image was taken on Google Maps. You can find more information. You can even dig deep and find out the hash of the image on the blockchain. And this is really a medium to communicate ever-changing content to consumers. And with communicating different pictures from different locations, different times, you build along the consumer journey, along the micro moments that a consumer has to decide on a product, you can build an image of trust and you can build a true insight into supply chains. Thank you very much. I'll make it short. Come and see me if you want to talk about it. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Joe Tilley and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Inco Technologies. First of all, I'd just like to thank Seeds&Chips for hosting this event. Marco and the team have done a great job. We've actually won 2 pitch competitions here at Seeds&Chips. We won the Mondelez pitch competition as well as the Givaudan Future Food Traceability program as well. So we're very delighted. The conference has been great so far. I just want to take you through what we do, how we do it, and what impact does that have on the global economy and the world itself. So Inco Technologies exists to create a safer world. Why? Because $1.7 trillion of illicit trade enters the global economy every year. That would be the 10th largest economy in the world by GDP in 2017. Also, our security markers are also used to prove sustainable supply chains, so proving brands' claims and practices within global supply chains, from palm oil to coffee, hazelnuts to medicines. As I mentioned, illicit trade is a $1.7 trillion problem, and it's the fastest growing economic crime worldwide. It's not a victimless crime, and when we think about crime, we often think, how does that affect us? What does that mean for me? If you've ever been involved in a global city that's witnessed a terrorism event, if you've ever seen organized crime on your streets, part of that is funded by the illicit trade industry. So it affects all of us, not just those that are using the products on a daily basis. The fact that it's the fastest growing economic crime worldwide, to me, suggests that nothing we're doing today is working. As I mentioned, this issue of illicit trade does affect millions and millions of lives, and it's not a victimless crime. In Africa alone, 1 in 6 medicines are counterfeit. 1 in 6. Would you play Russian roulette with your health? We all know the answer is no. Just a quick show of hands. Does anyone buy any products online today? Show of hands. Most of the room, 90% of the room. 50% of medicines purchased over the internet in the Western world are illicit. What that means is they're either fake, they're being sold in the gray market, in a market they shouldn't be sold, which causes great value arbitrage for brands and also risks public safety. So just think, next time you're buying things on the internet, how can you really trust the sources that you're buying it from? If we think about, before we go into food, there are actually, since we've been at Seeds&Chips for this 4 days, nearly 11,000 women and children have died in Africa alone because of fake medicines and food. Malaria medicine, heart medicines, and also pneumonia medicines. 11,000 women and children have died since we've been here at Seeds&Chips. That is just incredible, it's unacceptable, and we have to do something about it. So let's bring it back to food. That's why we're all here. Food fraud is an estimated $52 billion a year industry. $52 billion. While we've been here at Seeds&Chips, the counterfeiters, the illicit traders, have made nearly $600 million. Imagine what we could do towards the UN sustainability goals if we had an extra $600 million in the 4 days that we've been here at Seeds&Chips. I know Seeds&Chips loves numbers, so I just give you this context, just to really put into the mind frame what we're dealing with at a global level. Food fraud does not always appear as obviously as it does on the screen behind me. Food fraud takes many forms. They can be counterfeiting, it can be dilution, it can be substitution, it can be the stealing of packaging, and it truly is a global problem. If we look in Italy, the Italian olive oil industry is a huge, huge concern. This was a piece that was written on the New York Times. And also, in China, counterfeiters make 60 cents profit per can on counterfeit Red Bull. Now, when we started our company, people said, why are you going after food? Why not look at perfume? Why not look at other industries? And yes, we do. But the economic and health concerns with fake food, as we've already heard from the other panelists, is an incredibly important issue and something we as a business wanted to try and solve. We've heard about the incredible ability of blockchain to trace supply chains. However, thankfully for us, IBM announced in 2018, blockchain alone cannot solve the authenticity of goods. The challenge with blockchain is that it's data. Rubbish data in, rubbish data out. And you still have to rely on that trust in the supply chain of all these certificates and other things around you. So, Inco Technologies has found a new way to solve this problem. I'll take a step back. I hope you've all not had lunch yet. This is how the company was founded. What you can see behind me is a urine substitution belt. If you don't know what that is, that's good news. It means you've never had to substitute your urine for a drug test. My co-founder, Professor Rupert Keller, created a unique, edible, invisible crypto anchor marker, a chemical barcode that can be eaten and passes through urine to identify substitution within drug tests. This has been used over 1 million times and safely ingested and is approved as an FDA and EU inactive food ingredient. The positive drug test rate in the Cologne prisons where this was tested went from 5% to 35%. Often inmates were swapping their samples to avoid detection. This is 12 years ago. Now we're here today. Inco Technologies have created an invisible, edible crypto anchor marker that can be placed onto and into food to prove the origin of the goods and services that we all consume. It looks like this. It's an invisible chemical, as I mentioned. This can be applied safely to any food product to prove the authenticity. Not only can we identify is it real or fake, we can create over 67 million unique codes with this one chemical that allow us to batch authenticate products in the supply chain. This is a game changer. This is what will link the physical assets to the digital records on the blockchain. And IBM announced, quite thankfully for us, that crypto anchors will be one of the 5 inventions to change the world in the next 5 years. So I'm delighted at Seeds&Chips to announce that we've created what we believe to be the world's first multifunctional edible marker for protecting supply chains. People might say to me, well, we think people use DNA. What can you use this on? We can actually trace palm oil to prove the sustainability of palm oil. Our markers are sprayed onto the palm bunches, and because of their high heat stability and process stability, they can be used to trace the palm all the way from the farm, all the way through to the factories of the world's leading consumers of palm oil. The reason we do this, and the reason our marker is different to others you might see in the market like DNA, is the fact that it's a liquid. It's also a solid, but in this example, we can actually trace dilution. In palm, what happens is 70% of sustainable palm oil is mixed with 30% of unsustainable palm oil. And the blending process can't be identified by any other marker on the market today except for Encode. There's a lot of different reasons why our marker is special. I mentioned the dilution metric. I mentioned the fact we can create 67 million different codes, and we're constantly changing these codes within the batch lots. It's also FDA and EU approved, and we use it in parts per billion and parts per million quantities, which means it's a trace-level ingredient and is completely tasteless, odorless, and has no fit, form, or function on the product itself. This is a project that we recently did for Gucci, Zalando, CNA Foundation, and others to trace organic cotton in the supply chain. This is a farmer's living room. He doesn't trust any of the local villagers to mess with his organic cotton. So he had to spray the cotton in his house before the lorry came and picked it up to take it to the Gucci factory in India to be processed into the cotton we see today. We were in stealth mode until this article was picked up by Forbes magazine, and we are now working with those brands to look at the next stage of that pilot. Now we've completely traced the cotton to date from the farm to the ginner and spinner. We're also delivering on the UN sustainability goals. So in November last year, we were selected by the UN, the US government, and Unreasonable to be one of the 16 startups saving the world via eradicating fake medicine and fake food from supply chains. This was an incredible program, and we met some amazing mentors as part of that. We worked with Tom Chi, the founder of Google X, on rapid prototyping. We also have mentorship from Hunter Lovins, the Time magazine hero of the planet. This was an incredible validation of the hard work that we've been doing so far. So if I just distill all that into one slide, I'd just like to say crypto anchors are one of the 5 inventions to change the world over the next 5 years. Our marker allows food companies to end illicit trade in food and in other areas and prove the sustainable sourcing of their ingredients. We've proven this technology, it's ready for market, and we're really looking forward to the partnerships that we've been able to collaborate and work with at Seeds&Chips. I mentioned we were the winners of the Mondelez and Givaudan pitch competitions. We're delighted of the trust that those brands have put in us to work together to try and authenticate and trace their supply chains. And I think I would just like to end by saying this is an incredibly important issue. Food fraud is not going away. You've heard from the other panelists. We really need to find solutions that will deliver real, lasting change and make sure that we can end needless killing, we can end the financing of terrorism, and we can end illicit products entering our supply chain. I've been Joe Tilley of Inco Technologies. Thank you very much to Seeds&Chips.